a 78-year-old guy.
I know. I didn't even back up
Hell
the
no.
rest.
Okay.
I'm gonna have to have a break during the meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Gavel.
This shouldn't take too long to die.
This is your 30-second notice. Go ahead and be seated, please.
We don't have two live labor discussions. Okay, we're going to go ahead and call the meeting to order, our regular meeting, Tuesday, January the 18th. Blinn Board of Trustees. The Texas Government Code permits this Board of Trustees to meet in a closed executive session for the following reasons, among others: to consult with the college district attorneys on matters deemed privileged by the Texas Disciplinary Rules of Professional Conduct, to deliberate regarding real property. Security devices for security audits and economic development. If the board meets in closed session, we will take section invocation of pledge to the American Texas flag. I would like to welcome up Sorry, can you guys hear me? All right. Come on forward.
Good evening. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we come to you today and we thank you for today. We thank you for guiding, watching, protecting over all of us. Lord, I come to you to thank you for the Board of Trustees, the faculty, staff, and students here at Blinn. Lord, we come to you to ask you to please guide and watch us into a successful school year. And we thank you for all that you do. And thank you for bringing us all here this evening. And in your son's name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to the Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you, ladies. I think the Reverend Randy Wells would like to say a couple of words about these two illustrious ladies that just did that for us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to say that these are two of the stars of Blinn College, not just in terms of sports and scholarship, but service. They have served as mentors for some of our most average young people in Brenham ISD with our SMART program with Faith Mission. They also rang the bell at Walmart for Salvation Army. I think they raised the most money out of everybody who rang the bell. So again, the core elements of Blinn College, scholarship and sports and service, they truly exemplify that to the highest. And lastly, they're kind of cover girls. I need to ask them for their autograph, but they won the Brenham Banner twice for some of the service that they've done. So if you Google Brenham Banner, you see articles about the team. And I want to thank Coach Jeff Jenkins for always having his players be balanced as a community college to serve our community. So thank you all.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Okay, does not look like anyone has signed up for public comment. So we will move on to the reports portion of our meeting, item number 4. And first we will have the Chancellor's Administrative Report.
Thank you, Chair Colcorse. And Coach Jenkins, I know you're walking out the door now and you can probably hear me, but thank you too for your great leadership with the women's basketball team and accompanying our young ladies this evening. Trustees, today was our first day of class, and all of our campuses reported a very successful opening today, which we are so appreciate. Now, on the Brenham campus, we had move-in recently, and we used a staggered schedule so that students moved in over a number of days rather than just as they used to do sometimes on just primarily one day. And we started last Wednesday, and we staggered them throughout the week, and it worked very well. Trustees, regarding the honor roll, as you know, we had a wonderful fall semester in 2021. And in addition to the more than 500 students who graduated in December, the college recently named 2,400 students to our academic honor list for the fall 2021 term. We had 1,089 students who were named to the Chancellor's Scholarship List, and that requires a 3.75 GPA and the completion of at least 12 credit hours. And an additional 1,311 students were named to the Dean's Scholars List, which requires at least a 3.25 GPA and also the completion of 12 credit hours. So I'd like to congratulate all of our wonderful faculty and students for this wonderful accomplishment. Now I'd like to move over to our facilities update, if I may, and all of our construction projects that are taking place across our district. Let's start with Prairie Lee Hall. Now, the site work operations are approximately 85% complete, and the overall project is approximately 75% complete. Major activities underway include the cabinetry, countertops, and flooring installation in Building A, and the drywall installation in Building B. Now, this project, trustees, does remain on schedule for substantial completion in June. And then our final completion date, of course, for this facility is August. Now, at the Leroy Dreyer field, the pier drilling for the new locker room was completed over winter break. The excavation is taking place for the new structural concrete slab and the plumbing rough-in for the restrooms and the concession areas. And those are also in process right now. And now this project, it's early on, but it is on schedule, and where our completion date for this one is September. That would be September of 22, this coming September. Now over to Old Main. The end wall and the above ceiling rough-in work is nearing completion. The boilers have been installed and the mechanical rough-in work continues. Now, furniture quotes are in process right now, and we will be presenting those for insurance approval in the next coming weeks. This project is scheduled for completion in about 2 months. We think around March. And then over to the RELLIS Administration Building. The exterior finishes continue with brick and curtain wall installation. The interior painting is taking place on the first and second floors right now, and the end wall inspections for the third floor are complete. And the audio-visual vendor is under contract and will begin the rough-in work this month, and the contracts and purchase orders are in process for the furniture, fixtures, and equipment which were approved, you may recall, at our December board meeting. This facility also is on time for scheduling, and our plan is to open this one, of course, next fall also. So that would be fall of 2022. And then over to the Bryan Campus Administration Building, our demolition work on the 3 structures has already begun. The proposals from prospective construction managers at risk were received just recently on January the 13th in anticipation of a February board agenda that we will bring to you to recommend a construction manager at risk for your approval. This project also is scheduled for completion, but in 1 more year. No, so it should be November the 2023. Part of this move is you may recall that we're not doing it as we typically do for an August opening, but we're planning for kind of a mid-fall 2023 around that November timeline. And that's because we don't want to impact student services because they're so busy at the beginning of the semester. And this will take them a little bit more in their quote unquote downtime if we try to make this move around November. So November 2023 for this facility. And with that, trustees, that concludes my report. I wish everyone a very happy New Year, and I'll return the podium back to Chair Colcourse. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Hensley. Next item on the agenda and reports is 4B, presentation of financial statement package for the period ended December 31st, 2021. Mr. Cervantes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Dr. Hensley, members of the board. I think I'm growing legs here or something. So this report is going to take us through the month of December, which means we will be 4 months of the fiscal year through, 33% of the way through. Our revenue for this year through December shows a little bit over $57 million. Our expenses are almost $42 million, which leaves us a net of $50,200,000. A large portion of that net is coming from the other. It's our HERF funds, where we ended up adding another $7 million to our revenue that we drew down in December. Now let me go back to that just so I can make that impression. So that $15.2 million, a little less than half of that is coming from the HERF money. Looking at the revenue compared to last year, we're still $1.6 million to the good. And again, a large part of that is because of the HERF money. We had more HERF money this year than what we had last year, $1.1 million. So that's a significant portion of it. Our expenses are also up by $3.4 million. And if you look at that line item right above that debt service and the change all the way to the right, you'll see $2.1 million. We paid more in debt service. That's a large part of what's occurring from our expenses. And still, compared to what was a very, very good year last year, leaves us a little bit less in net increase in funds, $1.8 million. Our net tuition compared to budget, we budgeted $69 million, a little bit over 69, and we had $32.2 million, which leaves us 46.48. We're usually looking at somewhere between 45 and 50% in the fall is what we're trying to do of our budget. So we're right in line where we think we need to be as far as budget is concerned. Our tuition revenue is up. In district and out of district are both up. So that's the good news. The out of state is the only one of the three that is not quite where we would like it to be. It continues to go down. Our fee revenues are down $608,000. Our general fees is up, but our lab course fees have gone down considerably. We had all of our distant education fees in the lab fees last year. So now, because not so many people are going online, the revenue has moved away from that. Our housing and food service budget, compared to budget, we budgeted $11.1 million. We're at $4.2 million, 37.5% of our budget. That one's not doing as well in some areas. And looking specifically, I'll focus on the good ones. The food service is doing well compared to last year. We have a lot more students there. And parking has gone up dramatically. We had all these students last year that were taking the online courses and not coming on campus, and now they've come back. I did look, and I was talking to Trustee Benke about this before the meeting. Part of what we're going to try to do in the upcoming months is to look more than just of what we're comparing to last year. I would not say last year was a benchmark for us, and I don't want to use that as a benchmark, and this is a perfect example. If you go back to 2019, we were close to $1.8 million at this time in parking. So we're still down compared to where we need to be. Our total expenses the delta is $3.4 million up. As I said earlier, a large part of that is due to the debt service, the $2.1 million, but our E&G expenses are up as we come back to campus. Our travel and our consumables and line items like that have continued to go up. This is a slide that we showed you last month that we started started to use as a percentage of our revenue dollar. And I draw your attention to that payroll expense over the last 6 years through December, and look at how close those numbers are. And to me, what that demonstrates is an entity that is managing its resources well We look at our revenue, and I think Blinn does this very well. We look at the anticipated revenue that's coming in, and we're able to manage the expenses to match up to that revenue. The other big one, I know Mr. Moser looks at this one from time to time, and you can see over the years that it has gone up and it's come down. I will say to you, at the end of each one of those years, I don't know what this one's going to do. At each one of those years, that number has come down to be somewhere between 5 and 7%. I would expect this year, and I'll go on the limb and say that almost 12% will also come down and be close to that's a little less than 7%, which is our ceiling that we have artificially chosen. If it doesn't, well, you're in big trouble.
Counting on it.
The expense comparison by category is up almost 9%. That debt service on the right, again, is the biggest part of it, and the E&G expense is a little bit higher. You can see the salary and benefits is a little bit lower than what we had last year. On the operating side, up 1.1. This doesn't include debt or R&R. You can see it's pretty static except for auxiliaries. And the main component of auxiliaries is food service has gone up, and also because we didn't offer some of the athletic programs, the athletic costs weren't there last year. They ended up moving over, as you might recall, to the spring. Football was in the spring and not in the fall. Our student cash and refunds in December showed $4.9 million. We had received a drawdown from the Department of Education, the top number of $46,000. We did issue refunds to students of $397,000, but we received payments from them too of almost $5.3 million. Our other cash receipts in December were a little bit, $12.2 million. Interest is very modest. State appropriation is a big one, a little bit over $3 million. Insurance proceeds, we had a little bit come back from us, $153,000. Again, drawing down money from our capital projects, the bond funds at $2.1 million. I mentioned earlier that we had HERF money that we had received in December. Some of that was in previous months, adding up to $7, but $6.6 million of it came in December, and then a little bit of property tax and others, and $201,000. Our use of cash in December was high, $9.2 million. Construction is probably is the biggest part of why it is as high as it is, $2.8 million. In summary, we received $4.9 million in cash from students, and then other sources, $12.2 million. We ended up using $9.2 million, which left us a net increase in December of 7.9, and that remained in the bank in December anyway. Our unrestricted cash and cash equivalents has gone up from where we were last month, $133.1 million. Still haven't hit what we started out with in September of $136 million, but then in October, we ended up paying some of our debt, so it ended up coming down, but we're making some headway there. And when we compare that to where we were, I thought I had that number here, but anyway, I think we're way ahead of where we were last year at this juncture in terms of cash. Our higher education, HERF funds, we've used up all the student award money. Far right, the institutional strengthening, we've reimbursed ourselves for all of that. So what we have left is the institutional funding, almost $10 million that we have remaining. And you'll see on the far right, the bottom, it says HERF funds available, almost $10 million. Our expectation is that for the spring semester, lost revenue for auxiliaries, not sure if we're going to get some we will get lost revenue too for tuition and fees, even though we're up from last year. The year before, 19, I think, is we're using as the base, maybe even 20. We're still under that, so we'll be able to use that. Bottom line, we expect that by the end of April, May, that of that $10 million that we'll have a little bit over $1 million that we will have left, $1.2 million. That also includes that 9.8, includes $2 million that we're going to use for the HVAC or the building, or for the building, old main building. The board had approved that. So that's a portion of it will come out of that also. Stand for any questions, Mr. Chairman.
Douglas.
I don't have a question, if you can believe that, Mr. Cervantes, but,
No, sir.
but I do want to comment on one thing. You know, we see all these summaries that you have up there, but I think, you know, it's important to know that there's 25 pages of detail that you send to us, or your staff sends to us, rather, that supports all of this. And it's great detail, and it keeps us real informed. It's not that we don't have questions a lot of times here, it's because the staff does such a good job in presenting it here. So I think that needs to be mentioned.
Thank you, Mr. Bohart. You know, I have no doubt as I work with these people and I see the effort that they put in weekends and working late, and they are committed to get us the information as quickly as we can and as accurately as we can. We have areas or these reports that you suggested, the number of page count. We're going through those line by line and making sure that we feel comfortable with those numbers, and we will kick them back every day. That's our quality control. We'll see some things and ask some questions, and but the process seems to work very, very well. And I do also too want to thank the employees that work for us. They do a great job.
Mr. Cervantes, is the federal dollars, is this the last bit of the 10 million that you're going to work on this next semester? Is that?
Mr. Bozer, never say never. I don't think so. I mean, I think this is it, but I'll tell you, I saw an article the other day that mentioned something about more ARPA funds and going to a seminar, but I'm thinking that may not be higher ed. Maybe it's somebody else that's asking for money that they haven't doled out yet. I've not heard specifically that there will be other funds available to us.
One last little quick question, and it's a fairly minor thing, but on the bookstore revenue, it's down quite a bit compared to last year even. Any anecdotal thoughts about why that is? Is that an online type of situation?
Yes, their revenues is a really good question. It's a complicated answer. There are a lot of factors that go into that, but you've hit the big one. The online competition. There are some strategies that they are just Barnes and Noble's discussing with us that maybe we can figure out a way that they can increase their sales and increase their commissions to us. I think that is likely to happen. If we go down that route, we'll come back to the board and provide you that detail. Also, just for background information, we issued an RFP this week, might have been last week. They're all running together, but we've issued an RFP for bookstore services, which we will be evaluating. And somewhere around April, we'll come back to the board and tell you which way we would prefer to go, our recommendation.
Okay.
You know, Mr. Chairman, I have one other question. This relates to Dr. Hensley. Could, in your report about the dormitories being ready, do we have are we prepared to, do we have options on how we're going to go about and using the dorms next fall? I mean, could you highlight that for us or just?
Yes, and Dr. McBride, you may want to join this in Mr. Mosier's question, but yes, we do have plans. We have 3 dorms that we're planning on taking offline, which you all have known about for a long time. Also, Dr. McBride, I know, has been doing some consolidating in dorms so that we are not having just like 2 or 3 students in one dorm and, you know, the others are full. But we'll continue to keep you posted. But for the most part, I think we're going to be okay in the enrollment and the fill rate on the dorms. I think we put some information out on OneNote about a week ago, or maybe it was just before the the winter break holiday. But could you add in anything else that would be helpful for the trustees to know, Dr. McBride? And thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Hensley. And yes, it's true. We have consolidated. We have 2 residence halls this semester, actually last semester as well, that we did not fill. We didn't feel it was very responsible to have a building with maybe 10, 15 students. So we have 2 buildings we're not using, and we've already talked about our plans for moving into the new facility. We've also included it in our marketing to students. It will be an option when our housing contract opens February 1st for students to select as well. I went through a tour last Monday, and I'm just so excited to have these new facilities. And as soon as we're able to, we'd also like to offer tours when we have visit days with students, so that students can also see the new places at which they could go move to. We've had students ask us, I know I was in the student center, this was in December, and I had a student come up to me. I had a board that had samples of what was in the building. And she goes, oh, what size bed am I able to get into this hall? You know, things that I wouldn't even have thought of, but they're excited too. I just wanted to share that as she just came up to me, started talking to me. They're excited, the students are, about the new facility as well. But we have consolidated this year to be fiscally responsible, and we're marketing it with our other halls, and we're very excited from housing.
And trustees, we're going to continue to keep you very posted on this, because it's one thing to open up a dorm. And then it's a second thing to open up a dorm and take 3 offline. And it's a third thing to open up a dorm, take 3 offline, and deal with the COVID reduction in enrollment. So we'll keep you very, very informed on all of that.
I think it would be helpful for the board to be on board, because we could answer questions in the community in which those kind of questions will come up.
Yes, exactly. Very helpful. And if there's ever anything that you need that we haven't put out to you, just please let me know, and we'll be sure and get that information to you all. Thank you so very much, all of you.
You referenced a OneNote posting. I don't see that. Could you repost that or post on OneNote what our enrollment is?
What your enrollment is, or we were
Well, both
referring
the
to?
enrollment and the housing. I mean, I think it's important. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm like you, I'm getting questions constantly about the enrollment. So
I think it is last week, but we'll double check and reference it. But it's not the enrollment, it's the fill rate on each of the dorms, or on overall on the campuses, as I understand. Thank you. Be sure and get that out.
Okay, thank you very much for your report. And we will now move on to the consent agenda portion of our meeting. Number 5, all items listed in this portion of the agenda are considered to be routine by the Board of Trustees and will be enacted upon one motion. Be no separate discussion of these items unless the trustees so request, in which event the item will be removed from consent and considered in discussion and possible action. Trustees receive agenda materials in advance of the meeting, prepare for the business to be conducted. A is approval of minutes from the December 14th regular meeting. Looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Move that consent agenda.
Trustee Wells. Trustee Aylard, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to discussion and possible action items. 6A is acceptance of a donation. I think Mr. Cervantes is going to help us with that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Dr. Hensley, members of the board. In December, we received a very generous donation of $400,000 from the F.W. Burt and Maydeen Wheeler Foundation. That foundation has provided funds to us in the past that over the last 4 years that add up to $1 million, Mr. Chairman. These scholarships are intended for students that are enrolled in Blinn's nursing program. And we are asking that the board accept the donation as described.
Okay, well, thank you very much. That is fantastic news. And I'm looking for a motion that the board accept the donation described below. Trustee Benke, motion.
Oh, I'll second.
Trustee Mosier, got a second. All in favor, please say aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I do have a question. These funds, the whole $400,000 is for the 2022 calendar year.
That's correct.
So,
Do we utilize, that was my concern or question.
I mean,
Thank you, Mr. Bohart, for that question. Just trustees, just so you know, the foundation, the Wheeler Foundation does require us to spend all of those dollars in the calendar year. We received this donation last calendar year and we did spend all 400,000. So we have a plan and we will spend all $400,000 of these funds during this rest of this calendar year.
Okay.
And just so you know, we do provide a wrap-up summary report to the Wheeler Foundation that details how the money was spent and those sorts of things. But we will spend all $400,000 this academic year.
Could we get a copy of that summary report?
I'm sure
Oh,
we can.
surely.
Yeah, we'll get you. We'll get that to you.
I think it'd be interesting to see just what we did. with it.
Yeah, and we have Dean Trubenstein here, just wave so they'll know who you are over our health sciences. Does a marvelous job and ensures that these funds not only provide tuition fees, but wraparound support services as they may be needed as well. We do provide this foundation with an annual report on it, and I'm glad you mentioned that. We'll be sure and add that to the board information as well.
Well, you guys do a fantastic job, and that's why people are willing to give to our program. So thank you so much. Did we get that vote counted, or do we need to redo that?
Mr. Chairman, we should redo. We got the first and the second, but we did not do an actual vote.
All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, motion carries. Thank you so much. Okay, next item on the agenda is approval of proposed amendments to Board Policy BD. I think Mr. Schubert's going to help us with that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Dr. Hensley, fellow trustees. We'll just give a little background on this proposed amendment to BD local. This is one of those local policies that deal, and you've got a copy in your packet here, that deal with the information on meetings. Some background on this agenda item. This was a topic of discussion that came up at our last board officers meeting, and the board officers had asked for us to explore changing the time of the meeting from an evening meeting to a during the day meeting. And so once we had that item from the board officers, we as administration went through and started researching this, looking at the policy, looking at how this would impact all the meeting operations, looking at how other community colleges do their meetings, those sorts of things, public comment, how that would all impact. And so the kind of the summary of that was some discussions with the other rest of the board members about a meeting time or a daytime meeting, all those sorts of things was put into that work going forward. And what kind of culminated out of all of that is what you're seeing in your packet here. The current board policy, by the way, says we meet at 6:30, which we don't. We meet at 5:30, so we're going to update that. And part of the changes you're looking at here is some flexibility. We've got some flexibility there that says that meeting is when it's posted, based on the posting. So that builds that general flexibility for that meeting right into the board policy. And like I said, this was a culmination of looking at policy, how other community colleges meet, and also input from the board. And that's where you're seeing the result of these proposed policy changes. Happy to answer any questions or any other comments you'd like on this.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, this item was originally a consent item, and it was an item that I asked to be removed from the consent. And the original consent item indicated, I think, proposed start time of future board meetings to be 10 a.m. However, when I looked at the agenda today again, I saw that it was taken off of consent, but that the 10 o'clock timeframe was totally removed from the original agenda item. So if I may, I understand some of the board members were talked to and things of that nature, but I think things like this in the future need to be brought before the entire board for discussion, because it is board policy. And I think we all need to have input on it, not just simply a phone call, maybe to the extent, is it okay if we change it till 10 o'clock? I did a little research on my own. And first I want to say is, that I think that the time we are currently holding our meeting is probably pretty standard. I went to all 50 community college websites. I found that 34 of them, or 68% of them, hold their meetings at 5 o'clock or later. Those in the 5:30 timeframe are 9, those in the 6 o'clock timeframe are 9. There are some that do hold it in the mornings, the earliest being 11 o'clock. I think there are 3 of them that hold their meetings before 12, and then the other rest of those 12 are anywhere from 12:30 to 4 o'clock. And as I thought about this, I thought, you know, serving as an elected official, I think it's important that our board meetings be held at a time where the community can be here. First of all, they elect us to our position, and an evening time or afternoon time allows them the flexibility to get here. Secondarily, I think that it is going to have an impact on our student recognition of their achievements. Many of us have seen those students around the side of the walls. While I do think that they would probably be given, as I used to call it, a walk from the class, that is taking away from their time in a learning environment. The teacher has prepared, or the faculty has prepared for them to be there and has a message to deliver. I think it also will have an impact on our faculty and staff recognition of achievements and retirement. Normally around this room, we have retiring faculty and their families attend. I think that is better served in an evening setting. Having said that, you know, part of our core values are access. To me, by leaving it at a time similar to this, that does give all of those that I just mentioned and probably others access. It respects our faculty in being able to have those students in class and for them to be in a learning environment. So again, I really think that looking to the future as well, I think recruiting new board members will be difficult if they are going to have to be coming to morning meetings. It's difficult for a lot of employers in this day and time to want to let their employees off to serve in these capacities. Where I think an evening is more conducive to possibly getting some new board members into the future. So with that said, I really wish we would consider leaving the time at least in close proximity where it is. You know, we always have the opportunity to make changes going down the road. But I have missed 10 board meetings because I was a member of the Washington County Fair Association. I did not ask for the meeting to be changed for me because I felt that it's okay to miss a meeting or so if you have other priorities. 5 is a quorum, so you can still hold a meeting with only 5. So I really hope that we think about these types of things and maybe consider leaving the time where it's at.
Does anyone else have any other thoughts or questions? You know, part of the thing when we talked about this is, you know, actually looking at Blinn College staff and faculty and doing some research. It is actually more convenient for them to have the meetings during the mornings because it's, you know, most of the time they don't want to come up here in the evenings and show up for, you know, presentations. I think that the students prefer, I think the administration may have done some surveys with administration and staff just to check and see if that was a consideration. And I think most of the students would prefer not to have to come up here in the evenings to give their presentation for the invocations and those types of things. You know, I know that the city of Brenham meets during the day. Washington County Commissioners Court meets during the day. The BCDC, the Economic Development Foundation, the Chamber of Commerce, most higher ed education or boards meet during the day and not in the evening. There are some community colleges that meet
So you're basically questioning the information I just gave you about 68% of them meeting after 5?
No, I'm talking about, not junior colleges,
These
higher
are,
education.
these are community colleges.
You
And,
said
and I will
all.
also submit to you that many of the high schools and ISDs meet in the evenings. So.
Typically because their parents, parents would need to come to the meetings if they had an issue. Whereas we're teaching adults. Our kids are basically adults that are coming to school here. And so most of the time, those meetings would take place with an administrator, not in a forum like our board meeting. So, those are some of the reasons that we thought about doing it. I think it is something that administration and staff has been more interested in for a long time. And we wanted to make sure it was flexible and not a set time. 10 o'clock was the time that we had discussed as being a good time to have the meeting. But during times that there potentially would be public comment, or there was an issue that came up that really needed to have public input, having a flexible policy means that with 4 days notice, 5 days notice, we could change the time of the meeting and make sure that it was, if the evening was deemed to be a better time to have that meeting, we could change that time of the meeting. So, those are the thoughts that went into the process.
Well, Jim, if I can, I'd like to speak as far as this, as we talked about in the, whatever that group was, executive group. I do like the policy as it's stated now and that it's flexible. I think we need that. I concur with Douglas, though. I do not like the meetings at 10 o'clock. I think that Douglas kind of stole my thunder. I think he read my mind. I think it's really going to impede us getting board members in the future. I mean, you really have to either be retired or self-employed to be a board member. I know personally, I'm going to have to take a half a day vacation every time we have a board meeting now. So I thought 5:30 was a good compromise from the 6:30. And so, if I had to say, I'm not for moving during the day. Brenham ISD board meeting is meeting tonight. Burton ISD is meeting tonight. I'm interested. I was wondering about other community colleges, just the ones I've talked to all meet at night as well. So, but I didn't have succinct information like Douglas has, but that's my 2 cents.
I'd just make a comment and since I don't have a job or anything to do, I can, I'll meet whenever y'all want to meet. I don't, but I would say that in all of my years, in my profession, I've visited every one of these organizations that we're talking about in their meetings, and I covered them all at one time or another. And the time, invariably, everybody said, oh, you don't want to meet during the day because people want to come out and be a part of their government and watch, and be a participant. And you don't see anybody. The only time anybody shows up is when they're upset about something or got a problem or a mad. And they do it in the daytime. They'll do it in the morning. They'll be there at night, whenever, because if they've got a complaint or an issue, then they'll be there. I do know that it's kind of that's always thrown up, and that's not, to me, that's not a real issue. The issue is what fits for everybody that's involved on a routine or on a regular basis. And again, I find this something that I really find it difficult to draw a line in the sand about what time we meet, because I don't want to get in a fist fight about whether we meet at 10 or 5:30. I would enjoy, the 10 o'clock was good for me because I'd just like to be able to meet and have the rest of the day. But you know, I don't know what the rest of y'all schedules are. I think it'd be interesting to hear what everybody thinks about it.
I'm not opposed to any meeting time. Prior to taking the appointment, that was the discussion that I had with my employer. And I will make arrangements to be at the meetings, whatever time that they are, because it's important to me.
Well, I can meet anytime, but I did wonder when it was brought up, if I was in the job that I had originally been in, there would be no way that I could come. They would not have let me off. Or they might have, but not every month. So that's what I wondered when, because I know there's several people here that do work during the day. So I was a little surprised when I heard the 10 o'clock. I personally can do 10, but I know it might be a hardship for some of the others.
So the way the policies is written at this point, it doesn't state a time at all.
That is correct, Mr. Chairman. It does not state a time.
So at what point would we potentially set board meetings? Or how do you do that?
That would be up to the board to determine the time that it would be. And of course, all postings are done at least 72 hours in advance. And so our website also contains all of the meetings and times and dates and all those sort of things. So as soon as the board would determine what time that would be, all that would be updated and broadcast.
Mr. Chairman, in some of these other colleges, I went to the policy statement. It's similar to what is being proposed, but the majority of them also had a schedule of board meetings for the entire upcoming fiscal year posted at that time with their start times and everything else. And those are the times that I listed and mentioned in here. And, you know, it appears to work at that time for 68% of the community colleges. So I'm just saying, I don't know why it would continue to work for us.
And
Some quick
on our website,
observations.
just to clarify, on our website, we do have the upcoming meetings and the times posted. And so if that changed, we would just change that website that lists those times.
Yep. How far in advance?
At least 6 months.
Where's that at?
Yeah, it's on the board website. There's a list of at least that many on that website, and it's a rolling continuation. So when tonight drops off, another one will be added. It's kind of rolling.
Those can be
continuation.
changed anytime. I mean,
Anytime. It
you know,
can be changed on our
that's
website
not-
at any time.
I mean, you got to do it that way.
But are you asking, can it be put out there like in August so we know the whole year?
I'm just telling you what,
Yeah,
based on my research, some of the
Okay.
others are doing.
because that would be very helpful, because I've already missed one this year
Yeah.
because I thought it was gonna be on a different date in it. By the time we got it,
We
it
can
was too
definitely-
late for me.
We can definitely put that online, the whole year lineup.
We
once-
could do
once
that.
that's set. Perfectly fine. Not a problem.
I kind of have a tendency to overstate the obvious. And in accepting the board position as an elected official, the commitment is a very sincere one, and I have probably one of the most unique jobs out of everybody here, being executive director of faith mission and dealing with disasters and crisis. People don't plan when they're gonna be homeless. People don't plan to have a winter storm, so. But I think if the record reflects, I don't think I've missed a board member meeting in 2.5 years. So I think that it's important that if we're committed to the process, we got to be committed to the process. And I think that as we also talked about the numerous campuses that we have, and Trustee Binky said, whether we realize or not, every day somebody's asking me a question about Blinn College, why we're building buildings, what's happening with enrollment, on and on and on. And even though they may not come to the meeting, that's why they elected us in a position to be able to go to the administration, to go to the staff and get those answers. So I think we're talking about blended schedules. We use some same terminology we're using with classes in education, is that we need to always remember the commitment that we made, but also too, that we represent all of those people that's on that mission and vision statement. And whether they come or not, they still should have access. That's the whole purpose for me. It's not whether or not they physically come in this room, but whether or not they have access. And I know that our Richard Bray does a great job with our media stuff, but some people don't do social media. Some people don't read the banner, so they represent us. They expect us as their representatives to be able to respond to those things, and we can't respond to them if we're not here. OneNote is great and all that other stuff is great, but the most optimal thing is physically being here to hear all these wonderful reports that the staff worked so hard to bring before. So whenever it is, I think that initially, when we made the commitment, I think everybody knew the commitment was for 5:30. And I think that you may have to do some juggling arrangement if we shift the time. And I think that the commitment will be the commitment, but I think we need to consider all of the things that are in place and not just us sitting here, but also the people we represent.
So how does the current policy read that we would be potentially changing here?
So the current policy, I'll just read it. It's in the back of your packet, but the current policy says regular meetings of the board shall typically be held on the third Tuesday of each month at 6:30 PM is what the policy currently states. And this change would take out that 6:30 stated time and replace as stated in the posted meeting agenda is what the policy would then state, as opposed to a specific time be as stated in the posted meeting agenda. If you look at page 36 of your packet, 36 of your packet would have that proposed language. Second to last page, if that's easier to get to.
So it doesn't just have a particular time that said, it just gives the board flexibility to name the time that the meeting
Name the
is.
time on that third Tuesday of each month or as posted.
What does proper notice mean?
72
mean-
hours, at least
Okay.
72 hours is proper notice
Okay.
under the laws of Texas. Let me clarify, that's for a regular meeting. You can have an emergency meeting, which is called with less time, but for a regular meeting of the board, it's 72-hour notice.
So I guess I'm looking for a motion to change this to this proposed amendments or not.
With no time in there, is that
Right.
what we're saying? I'll make that motion. The motion is that there's no time set, isn't there?
It's just not a designated set time.
And then it'll have to be set, and agreed.
And I think, it would be appropriate to set as far out as you could so that everyone would have proper notice and be able to make whatever arrangements they needed to make.
Be clear, like Rebecca was saying, so she wouldn't look at a year's list though, but that does not keep you from changing the time of any of those meetings as long as it's 72 hours out.
That is correct. The set time for the meeting is based on what the posting contains.
Yeah. Even though they have them on a website or whatever, you can put them there.
So then if we did that, how would we determine the process? Would it be the executive council that would determine the process of we're gonna do 6 5:30s and 6 10 o'clocks, or we're gonna do 10 o'clocks and 2 5:30s? How would that process do if we voted tonight to say leave the slate blank and we figure it out later on?
Does the 72 hours, I mean, if we look at the paper, for example, I think it's printed now during the night on Friday. to go out for Sunday, but it goes in the mail Saturday, right? Does that sound right? Everybody gets it in the mail now, in town or out of town. But 72 hours prior to the meeting, that's 3 days. That would be Saturday afternoon if we were having there would be no way to get that into the paper. And I know social media things, it would be instantaneous to update. But is 72 the way that it needs to be? Or
Maybe it
does
needs
it
to be.
need to be
At least
a week? I mean, am I?
7 days.
I don't know if that's enough, because if we have it in one place as one time and we have it in another place as another time because it changed, then we're creating a greater problem.
So 72 hours is the minimum requirement based on the law.
Right.
We normally post well in advance of that. But 72 hours is the requirement. And so that would be the base minimum time period that you would have to post the agenda for a regular meeting.
You can still, I mean, if there's an emergency comes up.
It can be
something,
changed at
they
any
can
time.
be- With how many hours, within 4 hours or
If
something?
you're within an emergency call, you can do it within 2 hours notice. And just
Extreme circumstances.
yes, just to get way into the weeds here, the posting is done physically downstairs on the door, and it is uploaded to the Secretary of State's website. We also provide that information to the public and staff members and those sort of things. So the posting itself is not in the paper. The paper does pick up that we have posted a meeting for X date and time, but we do not actually run a posting in the paper. That is posted downstairs and online on the Secretary of State's website. We do not print in the paper, Blinn College meeting will be on such and such date.
That's
That's
not a
not-
legal notice. That's just
Yeah.
agreed to. That we asked the various governmental entities to send us a copy of their notice. But the papers deal may not be exact, and especially now with all the infrequency, but and some of them post them at the courthouse. I don't know, do y'all do that?
No, we post downstairs at this building. I don't know if that helps to understand the process of posting and what actually is posted.
So we've got a motion on the floor. Looking for a second, but any further discussion, any other thoughts or comments that anyone would like to add?
Oh.
Generally, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but generally, wouldn't that be done in a board officers meeting where they go over the month prior and look at the next month's agenda and say, okay, this is what the meeting time or date would be?
Yes, that's correct, Chair Cole. Of course, typically the board officers look at a 3-month rolling out into the future. They can do it certainly longer than that, but so they may determine that they want to have a morning meeting, say at 10 a.m. for the next 3 months, and it would be posted and put out to the board, well in advance of that. They could do 6 months, they could do a year. But usually it's determined by the board officers with notice to the board.
I'll second Mr. Mosier's.
Okay, it's been motion been made and seconded that we just make the change to the proposed board policy. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Are we having no executive session tonight? Okay, so I would entertain a motion for adjournment. Move, you got a second for adjournment? Trustee Aylert, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you, guys. Thank you, appreciate it.